from Hale Booktubes, and this is my April wrap-up. I read 16 books in April. They were all romances, and this is my lowest reading month in 2 years, by far. But that's because I did start YouTube this month, and I know that all the time that I put into YouTube has basically come out of my reading time. And also, before I even started YouTube, I got into a solitaire phase on my phone because I was so slumpy just from the quarantine. I needed something different from my normal routine. I am a stay-at-home mom. I watch kids in my home, and so I'm home all the time anyways, but even so, just the mind space is different. So this was a lower reading month for me, which I think works out well for my first ever wrap-up video that I'm trying to film. So let's get started with the very first one chronologically, which is Dom Fitness by Brianna Hale. I gave this 4 stars. It's a Kindle Unlimited romance. It is the idea that Dominic opens a gym where all the trainers are BDSM dominants, and so he's, worried that it's going to be a huge flop. Seems to be successful. This Bradley reporter gets sent in to do a story. They have a romance. It was surprisingly good. I honestly thought that would be very bleh. And Brianna Hale is a steamy author, so there were some good times, and the plot was fairly interesting. Number 2, I DNF'd Beg Me, which is a Billionaire Syndicate romance by Penelope Woods. I read 30% of it. It was all sex, and it was unbelievable sex because they were doing things in public 2 seconds after they met each other, and it just didn't get any better from there, and I wasn't interested. Number 3 is Sealed with a Curse, which is the first in the Weird Girls series by Cecy Robson. This was recommended by the Naughty Librarian here on BookTube, which I will try and link if I know how to do that. We will see if I can figure it out. I gave it 4 stars. There was not a whole lot of development in the romance, but it was a pretty good time, and the love interest is a shifter, and there's kind of a little bit of a love triangle with a vampire. The main character and her sisters are all unique in the supernatural world because they are the products of a curse. So they're not shifters, they're not vampires, they're not witches. They're totally unique. And there's quite a bit of humor in it too. Number 4 is Riding Red by Alexa Riley. This is 3 stars. It's a smutty novella. It was a shifter who the main character doesn't know that they're shifters, and it was based on Red Riding Hood. That's kind of the whole thing. It's just sex and waiting for the full moon to have sex, and that's really it. Number 5 is Always Loved You by Ella Goode. I gave this 3 stars. It is on Kindle Unlimited. It is a novella, but this is a guy who bought his wife from her father 5 years ago. 5 years ago. It's 5 years later, and they still haven't communicated. So he's showing her love. She doesn't see it. She just thinks that he just wanted the shipyard. He didn't care about the shipyard. He just wanted her. But they didn't say anything for 5 years, so that was a bit frustrating. We also made a good bit through the book with them still not communicating well. So number 6 is After the Climb. It is the first in the River Rain series by Kristen Ashley. This was kind of a surprise drop as far as I can tell, and it was free to her readers on her Facebook page. I have no idea if that is still current, but it was, as always, good. I gave it 5 stars. You should be aware of triggers for suicide because what happens is there's 3 friends. They had a huge falling out years and years ago. One of the friends commits suicide, and in the aftermath of that, they realized that he was not the guy that they thought he was, that he really split them up and did the divide and was manipulative. It's them coming back together, their second chance love story, and dealing with the aftermath of one of the people that they loved realizing that they were not a good person. You did get a lot more of the hero's perspective in this book than you normally do in a Kristen Ashley book, and you also got the main character's daughter's perspective, and her romance is going to be the second book in the series, and I loved it. It was lovely. Number 7 is Suds and Sam by Stella Marie Alden. I DNF'd this. It was confusing. It really seemed like it was not the first book in this story, although I kept checking Goodreads and it said it was the first book. It really felt like you were thrown in after the beginning, and I didn't care enough about it to keep trying to get over that. So that's really why I DNF'd it. Number 8 is Until Cobi, which is book 7 in the Until Her/Him series by Aurora Reynolds. This is very over-the-top alpha male, and you do get spoilers for other books in the series. I do not care to read every single book in the series, especially because they're not free on Kindle Unlimited. They're also not at my library, so I do have to pay for each one that I read, which I don't like to do. It satisfied what I wanted at the time. Very over the top. If you don't love alpha males or Aurora Reynolds in general, this is not the one to start with. This is not the one to change your mind. It's just, if you already like that, here's another one. Number 9 is Love Her or Lose Her, which is number 2 in the Hot and Hammered series by Tessa Bailey. And I loved this book so much. 5 stars, completely adored it. You should definitely read Fix Her Up first, as a lot of the buildup for this book does happen in Fix Her Up. So you really care more about the characters right from the beginning if you've already seen their struggles in Fix Her Up. But this is about a married couple who basically are speaking different love languages and have allowed their marriage to break down to the point where she doesn't think that she can do it anymore, even though they desperately love each other. If you're in a long-term relationship / marriage, you should read this book. It was funny, it was sweet, it was moving, and it was free marriage counseling in a hilarious setup. Dominic is alpha, he's a veteran who is struggling with PTSD, which really doesn't get addressed in the book, surprisingly enough. He's really dealing with a lot of survivor's guilt. He shows his love to his wife by providing for her, but he doesn't talk to her. Like, they haven't talked in years. Rosie loves her husband, but has really just given up. She doesn't know what to do, and she's just not doing anything. She goes to work, she comes home to a silent house, and that's it, and she just doesn't know what to do. Fix Her Up, you see the buildup of how she's finding herself and her courage to open her restaurant that she's wanted to open her entire life. This is about a couple who get a second chance romance without their marriage ending, who really need help. They need to fix their marriage, but they're also not being mean to each other. They're not treating each other horribly. They just need somebody to point out, hey, you love each other. Here's what you need to work on. I loved it. I adored it. You should read this book. Number 10 is Rebellion, which is the second book in the Sainthood-Boys of Lowell High by Siobhan Davis. This is also a Kindle Unlimited romance. This is reverse harem. It is bully. It is high school. If you don't like any of those things, you will not like this book. It is very over the top. It is ridiculous. It is insane. I'm apparently here for it because I cannot wait till the 3rd book comes out in July. The series is about 4 guys who are the head of the junior chapter of the Sainthood. The girl has a lot of trauma and history with the gang, and when her dad dies at the beginning of the 1st book, she has sexy time with the 4 guys, doesn't speak to them all summer, and then they transfer to her high school at the beginning of her senior year. It's a dark romance. There's lots of sex. There's lots of very, very dramatic, over-the-top plot twists in this. It's good if you like that. Number 11 is Stuff by Mink. It is on Kindle Unlimited. It is a smutty novella. I did read it for Smotheathon. An assassin falls for a stuffed animal designer. It's funny, it's quick, it's over the top. That's really all you need to know. You're either going to be interested in it based on that, or you're not. I did give it 4 stars. Number 12 is The Negotiator, which is number 7 in the professional series by Jessica Gadziala. This is on Kindle Unlimited. This is one of my favorite authors of all time, Kristen Ashley, Jessica Gadziala, and Tessa Bailey, who are all on this list, who all got the 5 stars because they're the best. They're the best. I love them. The Negotiator, you really do need to read the previous books in the series to appreciate, because you get to know Miller as a professional in all of those books, and then this book really focuses on her as a woman, but it will be much more impactful if you already have seen what an incredible negotiator she is. Miller needs a break. Instead, she wakes up on a yacht off the coast of Greece thanks to her insane friends drugging her and setting her up to negotiate for this Greek crime lord, like the crime lord of all of Greece. Christopher is her type. He is tall, he is dark, he is dangerous, he's somebody that you should stay away from. And we get to see two people who are really good at what they do and are never letting people in, and who are in a world apart on a higher level, let down their walls. They just kind of stop and let each other in, and it is the sweetest thing, but it is so much sweeter if you've already read the rest of the series. Number 13 is Given to the Mob by Autumn Rain. I gave this 2 stars the more I thought about it. I did read it for Smoothathon. It was free on Kindle. It's 50 pages long. I thought it was a little manipulative and there was no plot. But essentially the title says it all. This girl is given to the mob as payment for her father's debts. The head of the mob obviously falls in love with her, decides that he'll accept that payment. That's it. That's the whole thing. Number 14 is Kidnapped by Bigfoot by Hart. This is on Kindle Unlimited. It was not good. It's about 2 loners finding insta love in the woods. That's the whole thing. That's all you need to know. The story of Bigfoot plays a role, but that's it. Number 15 is Burned by Suzanne Wright. This was another 5 stars. I do love this author. This is the first in the series. It's urban fantasy with demons, basically fated mates. If you want a paranormal romance with a very powerful love interest and a unique heroine with lots of sexy times and lots of animal magnetism and kind of demons emotionally not caring about other things, I really loved it. The last book that I read in April is number 16, The Black Fox by Brianna Hale. So she was my first author of the month and my last. I gave this book 3 stars. It's a daddy kink retelling of Zorro, and it's him and his new stepdaughter. Okay, so I kind of feel bad saying this, but I could have not had any of the plot. I thought it was really boring. I was not interested in the plot at all. But the steamy times were so steamy. They were so good that I had to give it 3 stars because it was amazing. But the plot itself, I could just take or leave. It is a novella, so you're not wasting a lot of time if you don't love the plot. And the sex scenes were really good. That's it. That's all the books that I read in April. 16 is my lowest reading month, but hopefully it makes for a good video. Starting a booktube channel and reading lower for a month is a good trade-off in my book. So I'm very excited for my first wrap-up. There were some really enjoyable reads on this, and I hope you got a recommendation. Please comment and tell me if you read any of these and loved them, or if you want to pick any of them up. I'll have a new video in a few days with more romance recommendations, so thank you. Bye.